Welcome back, everyone, to Between Bells. Can you believe it's already been a full year without cruising whatsoever? The cruise industry has been in troubled waters amid the pandemic, but the future is looking a little bit brighter. A recent Cruise Critic survey reveals that 83% of people will book a future cruise in the near future. So here to discuss is Colleen McDaniel, editor-in-chief over at Cruise Critic. Colleen, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, the coronavirus still to this day continues to grip the world, but we are seeing vaccine distribution start to ramp up. People already starting to think maybe I will have that summer vacation, or maybe I will have some good stuff on the horizon. So what is the current state of the cruise industry here?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Baker. It's always a pleasure to be here. So currently, the state of the cruise industry is it's still on pause. It's been almost a year exactly since cruising shut down here in the United States. We have seen some cruising in Europe over the past year, and some real positive, successful stories from Europe where we've seen sailings from a single country like Italy, and also in Singapore.
All right, so let's go through some of these numbers, because compared to February of last year, it looks like the average cost of a book cruise has actually risen about 15% so far. Do you expect that number to continue to get higher here?
Sure. And I think it's important to note that that number has gone up in part because we've seen an increased interest in small ship cruising and more luxury cruising, even river cruising, which comes with a slightly higher price tag than maybe a traditional big cruise ship has. But what we're hearing from the cruise lines and hearing from the readers themselves is that people are still excited about cruising, and booking is really strong. So if you're looking for a deal, well, you might not find that right now because pricing integrity remains pretty high.
All right, that's good to know. So what are the highly booked cruise destinations so far? And is COVID going to play a role in where maybe people decide if they are going to go, where they're going to go?
Sure. COVID is going to play a big role in helping people decide where they're going to go. As things open up, it's going to happen in sort of dribs and drabs. Cruise lines aren't going to bring their whole fleets out at once, but more one ship at a time, and probably not to full capacity. Here in the United States, it's likely that we're going to be seeing cruises in the Caribbean first, likely shorter cruises with some of those private islands that the cruise lines own on the itineraries. In Europe, it's really country specific to begin with, but we're seeing some positive signs in the Mediterranean. Italy, Greece is looking really positive, and beyond there.
Colleen, we remember the early parts of the pandemic when people got COVID on those cruise lines and everybody was sort of stuck on that cruise together. Are cruisers more confident and maybe confident about their safety on cruises than, let's say, maybe an airline or some other all-inclusive resort?
So I think we're seeing a lot of confidence from our readers. They're all looking to book. We have 81% saying, I am ready to book right now. Get me on a cruise ship. They are a passionate group of travelers. They're also aware that even though there hasn't been actually cruising in the past year, the cruise lines haven't been sitting on their hands. They've been looking to create protocols and keep people healthy and safe when they're on board. So they're going to have a little bit different experience on board because there are going to be some protocols in place aimed at really keeping people healthy and safe.
Colleen, you guys at Cruise Critic, you did a survey and you found that 83% of respondents said that they'll book a future cruise in the near future. How optimistic are you that maybe that's going to happen within the next 6 months? Is this going to take another few years for people to finally feel comfortable about that? When do you sort of see this sort of to pick up?
Yeah, that's really the million-dollar question right now. In the United States, the cruise lines are working with the CDC on a resumption of sailing. The very next step that's going to have to come are some of these test sailings, which is a requirement of the CDC before they actually return full-time. So that's going to be the next steps. That's going to take some time, and most cruise lines have canceled at least through the end of May. So we're really looking at late summer, early fall for a real resumption, and that's truly a best guess. Honestly, it changes all the time. The biggest factor is going to be, when is the pandemic really under control, and when are people going to be able to travel comfortably and feel really safe about that?
Absolutely, because that's the answer. Everybody in the travel industry, not just the cruise industry, but everybody in the travel industry wants to know that as well, and that's kind of going to help them as well. You know, it's interesting when we look at what a post-pandemic world is going to look like for a lot of businesses. We're seeing touchless technology being implemented in a lot of places as well. You know, maybe people might be hesitant about buffets down the road. Who knows? What do you sort of see the future and the evolution of these cruises going towards in an effort to get a lot of those people to come on and feel safe about their experience?
Yeah, you hit on two biggies right there. The touchless technology is something that cruise lines actually have been working toward and working on for a number of years. I think it's going to be more meaningful because they're going to be able to make that connection more meaningful for passengers, right? The idea of getting on a cruise ship without actually talking to people, having FaceTime with people, without handing over a passport, that kind of thing. That's a reality that people are going to see. On board, they're not going to have to go to the purser's desk to resolve problems or make reservations. They're going to be able to do it from their devices or from their staterooms. They might not even need a key. They'll be able to use, you know, either wearable technology or their own devices to get into cruise ship cabins. And that's going to be a big change for a lot of people.
All right.
Additionally,
no, I was going to say, finish your thought, Colleen.
I was just going to say, additionally, that buffet, which for a lot of people is kind of a cruise ship staple, that's going to be different when people come back. We're expecting that that's going to be fully crew served instead of self-serve, which is going to change the experience a little bit, but ultimately designed so you aren't touching the same things that other people have been touching.
That's good to know. As long as I still get the food out on the end of the day, that's all I really care about. Colleen, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Colleen McDaniel is the editor-in-chief over at Cruise Critic.